Hello, everyone. My name is Rick Phillips, Executive Director of NCCA Canada. That's the National Communication Coaching Association of Canada. And today we have with us Colleen Clarke, who's a world famous corporate trainer, author, coach, and most importantly, one of our board of directors, one of our valued board of directors. Today, we're going to pick her brain on the whole world of corporate coaching. So let's get right into it without further ado. And before any real formal introductions, because you'll get to know her during this conversation, Colleen, hello, how are you doing?
Rick, great. Good to see you.
Good to see you. I'm going to hit you with,
together.
always good to be together.
Always
We've known each
good.
other for many years, but we'll get to that later. First question right off the bat is, if someone was to ask you, like, what is a corporate trainer? What's your definition? Do you have a couple different definitions? How would you answer that question?
Well, being a corporate trainer is, instead of being a mother, I didn't get to be a mother and tell people what to do all the time. So this way, or a nurse, as my mother would say, this way I get to stand in front of audiences and I get to tell them what they should do to better their lives or to feel better about themselves or motivate or inspire themselves to find a job. So, and get paid for it. But what, quite honestly, being a corporate trainer is about inspiring people. You can't motivate people, but you can inspire them. And you inspire them to want to move from where they are now in their life to where they want to be. And hopefully you're sharing with them information that will be something that they can apply. And I often say, it's just one thing. You just take one thing away from this and apply it. Don't just think about it, but apply it. I promise things will be different because there's a domino effect in life. So
it sounds like a lot of responsibility. Can anyone become a corporate trainer, or is there a certain personality or certain skill set that they would require? I mean, in general.
Well, we're not certified. You're not a certified corporate trainer. You can hang out your shingle without having to go through a board or any kind of certification or pay lots of money. So yes, anybody could be a corporate trainer, but I was speaking with a couple of people the other night over dinner, and they both looked at me and said, I could never stand in front of a group of more than 2 people or 3 people and talk like you do. I mean, so not everybody is born to be a trainer. Now, that's the other thing. There's those of us that have the personality, the drive, the desire to help, to make a difference. And I started out as a career counselor and then moved into training and then became a workplace coach. And all of it came from learning about my personality and finding out, a little bit later in life, late 30s, early 40s, that this was sales and marketing was great, but it didn't really make a difference at the end of the day. It didn't feed the poor, so to speak, and this feeds the minds of the people that need help, assistance, guidance, inspiration, and that feeds my soul. And I've spent my life having people do that with me. And so it was like almost like a give back.
Yeah, paying it forward. Very good. What type of skills did you like to teach? Did you enjoy sharing? Or
do I teach?
Yeah, like over your whole career, like you mentioned workplace, career counseling, workplace, all that stuff. But what specific subjects were the main go-tos that people either wanted you for or that you loved teaching?
Well, the basis of my speaking life started with running an organization for unemployed business professionals. And so speaking about job search, everything from, what not to say to people who are unemployed, we used to put that list together, to finding your passion, how to market yourself, networking. Of course, I was asked by the speaking organization that I worked for out of Kansas City to write a book. And my audition speech to them when I was going to speak for them around North America was on networking, because my group, EARN, was founded on the premise of networking. And So you have to find the topic that drives your passion, and helping people through job search and becoming a career counselor started it all. So that was my foundation of topics. And then as a trainer, people like you, or they want to hire you for something, but they have a topic. So very often it's a matter of, can you come and speak to our group of teachers? Can you come to speak to our group of hospital administrators? And this is what we'd like you to talk about. So then you start adding to your ballywick, and you start growing and finding that wellness topics, because I've been working with EAP providers for 20 years, wellness topics, communication became my passion, aside from career counseling. So that's how this all came about.
Very good. There are a lot of corporate trainers out there, or people that want to be a corporate trainer, and they might be asking themselves, how do I advertise myself? How do I get my name out there? Can you recommend any tips at all that have helped you along the way to just get a little more recognizable name, to get making the hiring process a bit easier?
You know, I'm really glad you asked me that question, because I am the biggest purportant of what I call visibility marketing. There's a lot of other people out there that are into it too, but they don't even know that that's what they're doing. I purposely spent my career, you don't advertise. You don't buy an ad in the Beach Metro News, or you don't buy an ad in, Now Magazine or anything like that, per se. For counseling, you could buy a little ad in the back of the Beach Metro News, but you're not going to do that as a corporate trainer. So my mainstay for my entire career has been visibility marketing.
Do you want to explain that a little bit for the people that may not be familiar with the term?
Thank you for asking that too.
Thank you for that throwback. Yes.
And it's even a section in my book on networking, how to build relationships that count, and sometimes I'm not an introvert by any stretch of the imagination, but sometimes for more introverted people who do have a message and do want to get into corporate training, visibility marketing is a great way for them to get themselves out there without getting yourself out there. And of course, I started in this business 37 years ago when there was no internet. So you talk about visibility. Well, then I was probably the second person I knew that had a website. But remember, I might be older than a lot of people too. But I had a website, and now I have 2 websites. And so the technical world changed how you could be visible. You can have blogs, you can do podcasts, and it goes on and on and on. How I did it was I went out and spoke for free. I spoke at Rotary clubs, I spoke at Lions clubs, I spoke at associations, I spoke at job finding clubs, and of course I had my own Earn group, which I spoke at every week. And so the visibility part was what somebody came up to me one time and they said to me, this was at a speaking engagement, they said, "You're everywhere. Everywhere I open the paper and you're in the paper. I turn on the radio and you're on the radio." And I did see, because I founded Earn in 1990, which was this networking group for unemployed business professionals that met every week. It was new. It was nobody else had ever done anything quite like this. And so I was on the radio, I was on television, I was in front of an audience of 80 people every week. And then I was working with Skill Pass seminars out of Kansas City. So I was traveling the United States and Canada. And so visibility, even at work, though, you can increase your visibility. You can carry a coffee mug that has an interesting saying on it and carry it around your office. You can get a book and you carry the book with the name of the title facing outward, so people will say, "Oh, what are you reading?" Or, "Oh, wow, that's an interesting title."
Right.
Never mind. Okay.
I know you've got lots of stories.
Yeah, lots of stories. Okay.
We'll save that for another time. So very good. So by the way, EARN is an acronym. Do you remember? What is it?
It's the Executive Advancement Resource Network.
Okay.
And yeah, Yeah.
Just because we
And
mentioned it a couple times. Yeah.
yes, sorry. I founded it in 1990, and I ran it for 10 years, and then it went for another 7 years under the HSDC umbrella. And I worked with probably over 7,000 people in that 10 years, just at Earn, not
Right.
with my own business
Right.
and company. Yeah.
So piggybacking on your advice to kind of get out there, be visible, even if you're giving a talk for free, but you're in front of all these people who then refer you, et cetera. You also mentioned that you were in the newspaper. So back in the day, there was these, for those that don't know, there were these free commuter newspapers, and your
Oh, that
articles,
too. Yes, that
you were in
too.
there, right? As well as standard newspapers as well.
That's true. Yes.
How did you get to become a regular publisher or contributor to these newspapers?
I contacted the editor, and it was I think the first one was Metro News. Before it changed names, and
Yeah.
then there was 24 hours, and so
Yes.
then I went to 24 hours. But I just you know what, I'll tell you, it was September of the long weekend back in whenever it started, and I remember phoning or sending a letter, or we didn't have did we even have, I don't even remember if we were actually having email at that time. 19, yeah, we would have, I guess we would have had email, but I've always been a big proponent of using the phone, and probably because that's how I grew up in business, was using the phone. So I phoned, and in those days, they were starting the paper, like they'd only had 1 week of issues or something. They actually returned phone calls in those days.
The good old
And
days.
I presented myself to them as a career specialist who was, had founded this organization that helps unemployed people. And, could they use a column on job search? Well, of course, it was in the 90s.
Right.
Yes, in the 90s. And we had a recession, right? So they got back to me and offered it to me within a couple of days. So I was the first horse out of the chute.
There's a lot of people, I would say entrepreneurs in general, who worry about marketing, advertising, getting business, et cetera, what to charge and all this stuff. And what I like about the advice you're kind of sharing is sometimes it comes down to doing what you already know you should do, which is you can't hide in an office somewhere and not get out there and expect business to come. Like you want to get a newspaper, you call the editor, right? Like maybe
Right.
you're emailing too, but I love this advice of just really being proactive, right? And getting out there and trying to make it happen for yourself.
Yes.
Really that self-employed mentality of, if no one's going to do it for me, I've got to do it. I've got to get out there.
That's, as an entrepreneur, we have to wear every hat. We have an accounting hat and a marketing hat and, an IT hat, unfortunately,
Yeah.
and a sales hat. And my background is sales and marketing. So that was helpful because I already had that personality, and I already had I had the unfear. I didn't have any, I wasn't afraid of rejection. I mean, I don't like it, but I wasn't afraid of it. And I never took it personally because I was in sales and marketing for many, many years before I started my own business. And so it was not uncomfortable for me to pick up a phone or write a letter or, knock on somebody's door.
Right. Right. Good. Well, this is the time I'd like to introduce to the audience how you and I met. So from my perspective, I was teaching business English, so like teaching ESL, but business studies only. And part of the subjects I was teaching the overseas students was things like career coaching to some extent. It was interview prep. A lot of these students wanted to do internships for a few months here in Canada, here in Toronto. And so I was gathering resources and, using the photocopier like every other ESL teacher would do, and making copies of things. And so I end up finding these resources, which were the newspapers, the way you mentioned, these free commuter papers. And I found these articles by you. I didn't know you at this time, but there were all this great advice, everything from how to exchange cards, how to shake hands, how to network this way or that way. And it was exactly what I needed because the language was so clear, so perfect. especially not just that I understood it, but that my students would understand it and be very applicable. So for a number of years, I don't know how many, but for a number of years, I had your articles photocopied in my binder that I was, refotocopying for the
Really?
students. Yeah, and I was sharing them. So
We haven't had this conversation before. I
no,
didn't know that.
so
Okay.
I knew you before I knew you. And then one day, one of my clients, Abdurrahman, is a Pakistani person from Pakistan, and he's working in the banks. He's still working at the banks in the GTA here. And he invited me to the PPF, which is the Pakistani Professionals Forum. I don't know if this nonprofit's still around or not. It was a number of years ago, but I said, sure, I'll go, because I was thinking, network. And then he mentioned the guest speaker is Colleen Clarke. I'm like, what? Are you serious? I know her. Do you? Well, no, but I do, and all that stuff. So the reason why, I certainly appreciated him sharing his network with me, which, to your point, is what I was doing at the same time. I was networking with him, but then he'd introduce me to friends and colleagues, and I would get some other business elsewhere. So I was definitely using that networking system that you mentioned. But then I came and I saw you speak. You were the guest speaker there at the PPF. And then during the break time or afterwards, I come up and I introduced myself to you, right? And I said probably something like, same thing, like I've known you in your articles for many years. It's so nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, wow.
So that's how I find life interesting. And then you were signing books.
Oh!
There's the book, and that I got for you, probably paid $20 for it, and you signed it, right? And it said,
Yep.
I'll read to Rick, open a new window every day. Colleen Clarke, December 06.
Oh my gosh. Oh, 6.
Isn't that fun? So,
Wow.
yeah, that's life.
That's terrific. That was actually, I think that was a year that edition came out.
Okay.
Because
Good.
it had 3 different lives kept
Right.
getting
Right.
better, and the cover got better, and yeah, okay.
Nice.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that's where we met, and then from there, then I had the book to use as resources as well until I transitioned my career. And then we stayed in touch. And then when NCCA Canada came about, I thought I needed board members, and I thought of you. And I remember that you said to me, this is a little bit off track of our conversation, but connected to corporate training. You said to me, but Rick, I'm not a communication coach. And I said to you something like, we don't want only communication coaches per se on a board, that we want a diversified board, and you're a corporate trainer. And a lot of what you do is communication skills and workplace skills, et cetera. So there's a natural fit. And then it made sense, right? So we're happy to have you on the board of NCCA Canada, because share your experience and be our guest speakers at events and things like that. So.
Well, it's been fun. It's been a privilege. I do want to just mention one other thing that just came to my mind too. Just about how you get into doing things. And that is, I also was a columnist I was a columnist in the newspaper every week for 8 or 9 years, but I also wrote for monster.ca, and I also wrote for workopolis.com, also for about 10 years. And those were letters that were written to me through those websites, and then I would reply to them. Mm-hmm. And how did I get those 2 jobs? Well, I only really got the one job because my editor moved to oh no, that's not true. No. Okay. Yes. So here's what happened. I was working at a conference. I was speaking at a conference, and one of the booths that was set up there was Monster, which, of course, remember, this was all the very beginning, like what's monster.ca and what's Workopolis and what's Indeed. And there was a gentleman there who was taking down the booth. And I remember going up to him and I said, I see that you work at monster.ca. And he said, yes, I do. And I said, what do you do there? He says, well, I'm in sales. And I thought, well, that's not who I want to talk to, but he works at Monster. Right. And I said, well, you wouldn't happen to know if you have a like a content editor or, somebody that whatever the question was. He said, yes, I do. His name is Peter Harris. And he said, give me your card and I will. And I said, and give me your card, because you never expect somebody else to do what you need to have done. They're not they don't have the ownership that you have about building your career or making content. Same with looking for a job. Oh, my cousin, he might have a job for you. Give me your resume. you give me your cousin's name and I will give him my resume. Okay,
Right.
same idea. So we exchange cards, and can you believe, again, see, some things are just meant to be and other things aren't. But you know, Peter called me on the Monday or the Tuesday of the following week, and we just formed this relationship. And you know, I wrote for them for years and years and years. And then he moved to Workopolis and became the editor of the whole everything. And he asked me to come with him, and they paid me.
Nice. That's the best part.
So, you know, but again, the phone didn't ring out of the blue. You know, you do have to put yourself out there,
Right.
and you do have to think, how can I help these people, or how can they help me? You know,
Right.
mutual
Right.
kind of thing.
Last question, which doesn't have to be one singular topic, but it's the idea of just in general tips for the next generation of corporate trainers. Obviously, with NCCA Canada, we're thinking a lot of them would be people in the communication skills world of whatever kind, whether it's helping people get jobs, whether it's helping people do presentations, it's whatever it might be. What final tips can we give them? And I just want to start off with the first question, which is, have you ever thought of hiring a PR agent, or would you ever recommend someone kind of hiring a PR agent to get them, you know, to get their name out there, or no?
Yes, absolutely. These people are professionals, just like you're a professional in your own field, or want to be. And they have the ins, they have the means, they have the knowledge about IT and blogs and podcasts and websites and interview. They have all of that at their fingertips, and the amount of money that you would spend doing it should pay for itself in a very short period of time if they're effective, you know. And that's, again, that's what you want to do, is get yourself referred to somebody.
Right.
You know, don't go Googling a PR firm for startup entrepreneurs who want to be communication coaches, you know.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And the next question would be pricing. This is a big question. I don't want a big answer. Just simply speaking, when someone's trying to figure out how to price themselves, do you have any general advice, or is it just a matter of do the market research and
Yeah.
you know, try to be fair market value? Like,
yes, I've had that asked to me hundreds of times over my career as a workplace coach, as a career counselor, as a corporate trainer, as a, you know, as a keynote speaker. How do you is it 5,000? Is it 10,000? Is it 1,500? You know, my answer would be to talk to people who are already doing what you're doing, and ask them in this time era to go back and tell you, what did they charge? Asking me is not, because I'm been around for so many decades now, and Mark Bowden still same thing. You know, our prices weren't that price 15, 20, 30 years ago. You know, so what is the going rate today as a startup? I probably couldn't really tell you. So like with my career counseling clients, I tell them, do an advice call.
right.
And I've done so many over my lifetime, you know, based on today's value. You know, what is a good place to start? Free is usually the best place to start. That's usually where,
Yeah.
or if you're still working, look for opportunities within your organization where you can be the moderator, the facilitator, the MC, you know, to get your exposure, to increase your visibility, and to actually to get the practice.
Right.
You can't say like 5 times in a sentence when you're a corporate trainer.
Right.
Like,
right.
you know what I mean? Like,
Totally.
you can't
Like,
do that. You have to be like a good radio announcer who doesn't use like 3 times in a sentence, for instance, you know.
right. And the practice, as you said, whether even if the person is not charging and it's internal or external, that's such a valuable feedback and practice and confidence building exercise they're doing. And I would say the same thing in the coaching world, right? Like there's a phrase in the coaching world that says your first 50, which is get your first 50, hell or high water. get your first 50 clients, because even if you have to give it away, because that research that you're doing to find out what works for you and matching your style, your materials, and the feedback you get is just phenomenal, not to mention third-party testimonials and referrals.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And you know, Toastmasters, there isn't a potential speaker that I've ever spoken to where I didn't say, if you're not really good at this yet, like really good, you know, because you're new, but and there's techniques that that will help you. And I had speakers at Earn who came for 10 years. They came once every quarter or something. And some of these people were still going to Toastmasters after 10, 15 years as a professional speaker.
Right.
You know, they were SMEs. They were subject matter experts who had to speak about it. And they were very, very good. But they still went to Toastmasters.
Yeah. Keep sharpening the tool, sharpening the knife.
Absolutely. Yes.
Good.
So that is one thing I would highly recommend, even if you just go for one semester or something.
Right.
It costs next to nothing.
Yep. We're coming close to the end of our interview. Is there any last piece of advice you'd want to share, or anything you want to let us know? And we'll also have to get your contact information, your website and all that stuff as well. So this is kind of your, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Yes, there is. And it's just a little story. So when I started my speaking career, I was very fortunate to be hired by SkillPath Seminars out of the United States. And they put me on the road, and I spoke in 5 cities in 5 days. And I drove from one to the other, or I flew from one to the other. And I paid my price, but it was a full day workshop, 5 days a week. And then they asked me to write a book. So I laughed and I said, well, I'm a speaker, I'm not a writer. And they said, well, just write how you speak. And I did. And the editor that I had for my book, she said to me, you know, I hardly had to edit your book. I said, she says, I put it into chapters and formatting. And she said, but you, and she didn't know me all that well, but she said, you write like you speak. And I know I'm a good speaker. So I just wrote how I was delivering a presentation. So then I met a woman from California, from San Francisco. She was more of a networking maven in the US, where I was here in Canada. And we got to know each other. And when she would come to Canada, I would pick her up at the airport, or we'd go for lunch, or whatever the case may be. And I said to her one day, you know, Sue-Ann, I really want to write an article. And I'd like to get it published if I can, but I really don't know what I should write on. Because, you know, you have all these things in your head. And she says to me, write what you know. Write what you know. And, you know, I sat down and I had this passion about this topic. And can you believe it was published in an association magazine? So I didn't get paid for it, but it was written in English, it was written in French, and it had great big color photos around it, just like a real magazine, you know, and it was about 3 or 4 pages long because it had these big photographs.
Yeah.
Write what you know. Speak about what you know. Speak about what, you know, you can pick up topics along the way, but you know, my passion very early on in my career counseling life was Myers-Briggs, was personality preferencing and emotional intelligence. And that was really my bailiwick for a great number of years. And that was my passion. Every time I spoke about it, I just, you know, I just emulated, you know, knowledge and inspiration about how important this was in your life. And that has a lot to do with communication. And so I learned a lot about communicating through studying with the Myers-Briggs. So there's these different certifications or tools that you can pick up along the way that can add a layer to what it is that you already have in your life and bring to the table. So you can make it a 3-layered cake instead of a 4-layered cake, or a 5 instead of a 2-layered cake.
Right, right. Or same size, but just deeper and richer, more ingredients.
Yes. Oh, and with lots of icing.
And lots of chocolate. Okay, Colleen, what's your website? If people want to find you, they can find you on LinkedIn.
Yes, it's really easy. It's ColleenClarke.com.
There you go, Colleen
But
Clarke.
I also have, yes, there it is. I have also yourresumepro.com for those people that want to write a resume and don't want to hire a professional resume writer. That help them step by step by step. Yourresumepro.com and ColleenClarke.com.
And LinkedIn, like always, right?
And LinkedIn, yes.
Very good. Thank you so much for sharing your time. And this has been a really interesting interview, even for me. I've known you for many years, but yet I still learned something. And it's going to be very valuable for our members. And we're going to put this up on YouTube. And thank you very much, Colleen. And we'll see you at the next event.
Okay. All right, everybody. Good luck.
Bye.
Bye.